Good morning, friends. If you remember yesterday, we stopped reading when the maid came in the classroom. Do you remember? It was the head maid. And she's like, "You be sure to vacuum under those beds." And if you remember, Keith had said the maids never vacuum under the beds because they usually didn't. But why was the head housekeeper wanting to make sure that the maid vacuum under there? What did Mrs. Gridley say she saw? Do you remember? Did Mrs. Gridley see dogs or did she see mice? She said she saw a mouse. Did she really see a mouse? Yes, she did. She saw Ralph, and she saw Ralph when he was out in the hallway. But if you remember, she was very sleepy, and she's like, "Oh, maybe I was just dreaming." But now, when we start reading this chapter, Ralph heard something yesterday. He heard the sound of the vacuum cleaner. And guess what today's title is? You're right, it's the vacuum cleaner. Here we go. Let's read together. Sit up, pay attention, and focus up. Chapter 7, the vacuum cleaner. From his position under the bed, Ralph watched the tank of the vacuum cleaner being dragged in from the hall and listened to the clash and clang of the attachments as the maid connected a long metal tube to the nozzle at the end of the hose and fastened a carpet cleaning part to the end of the tube. He heard her humming to herself as she plugged in the deadly machine and began to work it back and forth across the carpet. "It's nice she's so happy," thought Ralph bitterly as he watched the hungry machine devour dust and lint that lay in its path. The maid's feet and white sneakers moved across the room until, without bothering to bend down to see where she was cleaning, she shoved the attachment under the bed. Oh no, where's Ralph hiding? He's under the bed, that's right. It slid closer and closer to Ralph. To be on the safe side, he pushed the motorcycle further from the reach of the machine, but he dared not take his eyes off of the attachment for even an instant. Why does he not want to take his eyes off of the vacuum? What's he afraid of? That the vacuum's going to... That's right, it's going to suck him up. He shuddered as he watched it gobble a dust mouse. But even as he shuddered, he was fascinated by the power of the motor. The maid began to sing, "I'll give to you a paper of pins, for that's the way my love begins." So she's singing while she's working. The attachment fell off the end of the long tube, but the maid, whose thoughts were elsewhere, did not notice. Now Ralph could feel the machine suck in its breath, and he knew he was in danger of being inhaled along with the dust mice. Just wait until you see this picture, guys. It's going to scare you to death. Recklessly, the maid pushed the open end of the tube back and forth any old way. There was no guessing which way it would go next. Ralph had to run with the motorcycle to avoid that terrifying hole at the end of the tube. He ran to the right. He ran to the left. What's he running from? The vacuum. And still the maid pushed that around, unaware that the attachment had fallen off. Suddenly, the maid threw down the tube, but did not turn off the motor. The tube landed with a bump and a bounce, and before Ralph realized what was happening, that awful machine had inhaled his tail, and he felt himself being pulled by suction across the carpet. Help! He could not keep from squeaking, but no one heard him above the roar of the machine. Get ready. Are you ready to see the picture? It's going to be frightening. Oh no, look. Oh no. The maid doesn't see because he's under the bed. He just managed to catch the rear wheel of the motorcycle as he was sucked along the carpet. He held on with all his strength. The machine, which was strong enough to suck up a mouse, was not strong enough to suck up a mouse and a motorcycle. Ralph lay there on his stomach, hanging on for dear life. Look, if he can hang on to the motorcycle, he's not going to be sucked up, right? And feeling his whiskers and his fur swept back toward the machine. So he's hanging on. Come on, Ralph, you can do it. From his position on his stomach, Ralph could see the girl standing in front of the dresser. She was smiling at herself in the mirror and arranging her hair, dreaming, no doubt, of the busboy. Ralph despaired. There was no telling how long she would stand there in that silly way. She wasn't even watching what she was doing. She was straightening her hair in the mirror. With the vacuum cleaner motor making so much noise, the housekeeper was sure to think she was busy working. She's not being a very good cleaner, is she? Ralph kept his paws. He felt his paws beginning to slip. He didn't know how much longer he could hold out against that machine. He had to think of something and think of it fast. With every bit of his strength he had left in his body, he clung to the wheels of the motorcycle with his left paw while he moved his right paw up to the exhaust pipe. If he could just manage to pull himself along until he could get on the motorcycle. So he wants to get on the motorcycle, right? Bit by bit, hand over hand, Ralph dragged himself forward until along the exhaust pipe he knew he was making progress when he could see part of his tail once more. He reached back and yanked his tail out of the tube, only to have it sucked in again. Ralph was far from being out of danger. "I'll give to you the keys to my heart," the maid sang. She is so silly. She's just standing over there in the mirror and she doesn't know any of this is going on. Now pulling her hair behind her ears and piling it on top of her head, oblivious to the desperate struggle that was under the bed. Once Ralph's paw slipped from the exhaust pipe and he thought he was a goner until he caught the rear wheel in time to save himself. Slowly he moved forward until his entire tail was free. Things were easier when he could brace his hind foot against the spokes of the rear wheel. Slowly he rose, clinging to the machine. So we're on page 84, friends. Until he was able to grasp the hand grips and throw his leg over that seat. Ralph felt considerably safer sitting on the motorcycle and very pleased with himself for having outwitted the vacuum cleaner. He was quite sure by now that the maid would never bother to look under the bed. Is she going to look under the bed? Probably not. She's too busy fixing her hair and looking in the mirror because remember, she likes the busboy. He tried to move forward, propelling the cycle with his feet, but he found the suction from the motor behind him was too strong. This made him wonder if the motor on Keith's cycle was stronger than the pull of the machine behind him. The more Ralph thought about it, the more it seemed to him to find out. No, it won't. Yes, it will. Yes, I will. I'm sorry. No, I won't. Yes, I will. Ralph argued with himself. He had promised not to ride in the daytime. So he's stuck there. He's on the motorcycle. And he's like, I told Keith I wouldn't ride in the day, but I'm in trouble. Yes, but Keith didn't know he would have a chance to see which was stronger, the motorcycle or the vacuum cleaner. Keith would be interested, wouldn't he? Wouldn't any boy? Riding the motorcycle would not be reckless. It would be an important experiment. Motorcycle versus vacuum cleaner. Which would be the winner? Ralph had to find out. So, here goes. Ralph is like, I finally got on the motorcycle. Should I take off? I want to take off. I think really he wants to get out of the way, but he also wants to ride that motorcycle because he's curious. He wants to find out which is stronger, the motorcycle or the vacuum cleaner. Which do you think is stronger? Do you think the motorcycle can drive off even though the vacuum is sucking him back? We'll have to read tomorrow to find out. Stay tuned, friends. Have a great day.